I just want to say, I don't want to blow up anyone's marriage, but in my reporting...
But you already have.
What I found...
Yeah, I heard a little bit of rom-com love, right?
Yeah, rom-com.
Why can't you just coexist and be married? Why does everything have to be a Disney movie?
Everyone has this vision, or a lot of people have this vision of the knight in shining armor.
Yes, yes.
That's why we bank on the red knight in shining armor. Salute! Welcome back. Millennials used to be the generation everyone said would do marriage differently, better, more evolved. Turns out the results are in. Oprah just did an episode with a live audience full of women nodding along to something called quiet quitting your marriage, staying married on paper, checking out emotionally. And underneath it, 3 different women's stories all point to the same 3 problems. They're still waiting on a fairy tale ending nobody told them expired. They're speaking a language their husbands were never taught to hear. And the hurt that comes from both is quietly turning into something else. We're going to show you all 3 with their own words and the therapist's own diagnosis on Oprah's own stage. Let's go!
Ain't that a man?
Modern women, millennial women, are quiet quitting their marriages.
These women are staying in marriages when they actually could leave.
So why did this concept resonate with so many women?
The term quietly quitting gave people a voice to what they were already experiencing.
The mental load of managing the house and being the CEO of the kids, I feel like I'm treated like I'm Google.
You're speaking for a lot of women right now. As you're saying this, I'm thinking all the women are saying, aren't we managing everything? Yeah.
For the longest time, I was like, do you even like me?
Wow.
I'm getting emotional.
Women in midlife are saying to their husbands, you haven't changed, and I'm evolving. You're not growing, so this relationship's not growing. They're stuck in stasis, and the women are ready for their second act.
Look at all the amens. Hello there, and welcome to the Oprah Podcast. I'm so glad to be with you all. So last fall, maybe you saw this article, or your friend or your sister may have forwarded it to you. This was, everybody was forwarding this article to everybody else. It was called The Women Quietly Quitting Their Husbands. It was in New York Magazine's The Cut, and it just ricocheted across the internet, hitting a real nerve for many women. It was about women who are over the age of 40, who instead of going through the drama, the expense, and the ordeal of divorce, have started to just walk away, back away emotionally, but did stay in their marriages. They quietly quit their husbands. And I remember reading this and thinking, I know a lot of women who are doing this. Watch this.
Women are quietly quitting their marriages. That's the headline of the Big Cut article that's got everybody talking.
So I just learned about quietly quitting your marriage. That is a new term to me, but I do understand it because there is something significant that is happening once women turn 40 and up, that they're like, enough is enough.
Did you see that article about women quiet quitting their husbands? So instead of getting a divorce, they're just like emotionally checking out of the marriage and keeping the rest of their life intact. It is genuinely shocking how many men are so passive and just like self-consumed that they don't even register when she has totally withdrawn.
I've seen a lot of talk on this app about women of a certain age who are quietly quitting their marriages. They're staying married, but basically they're like, forget you, I'm doing me.
Welcome to the Oprah Podcast, where it's always the man's fault, and women have had the floor on this topic for decades. And notice something. Comments are off again. That's exactly why the manosphere exists. Not because men wanted a fight, because the floor was never open to begin with. Now, these women online feel like they've started a movement. They haven't. This isn't new. Women disengaging from marriages they can't leave is not a millennial invention. What changed in the 1960s wasn't female unhappiness. That's ancient. What changed was no-fault divorce and a woman's ability to survive financially without a husband. That removed the exit's cost. It didn't create the impulse to leave. It just stopped punishing it. Now brace yourself, because we're gonna let Handy talk for 2 minutes.
What's going on?
Well, I am here. I can relate to every single thing that was said here.
Because?
I've been married to my husband for 19 years.
Mhm.
We have 2 teenage daughters, a senior in high school and a junior in high school. And I saw a quote a while back, and it said, "Do you want to be loved like this for the rest of your life?" And the answer is no. And so for the past 3 years, I've been on this journey of tapping into me, healing me, going within, the stillness and silence within. And the more I grow, the more I'm getting pushback from my husband. And the more I express, I want to be emotionally connected to you. This is what I desire. This is what I need from a partner. It is a dismissal, a denying that I'm doing that, or a twist.
And how does that dismissal show itself or manifest itself? Does he say, you're lying, or I don't see what you're saying?
You have a cush life. You have a good life.
Yeah.
I'm here. I said, yes, you're physically here, but you don't know anything that's going on in my life. We've slept in separate bedrooms for years. It started out because of snoring. And it was a grief for me because my husband, I felt like that time at night, like we could come together and talk. And that was a real grief for me. So I've reached kind of the end of this chapter with my girls soon to go off to college. And I want to connect with my husband. And he says things like, why can't you just coexist and be married? Why does everything have to be a Disney movie? And I'm not wanting Disney, I'm wanting connection.
Did you catch that, gentlemen? The discrepancy in communication. Husband says, why does everything have to be a Disney movie? She says, I'm not wanting Disney, I'm wanting connection. Interesting choice of words, because I don't want Disney is usually what someone says right before describing something that sounds a lot like Disney. The foolishness. 19 years married, 2 teenage daughters, financially fine, not leaving over money, not leaving over betrayal, not even leaving, technically, still married, still in the house, still going through the motions, checked out anyway. A difference in what each of them thinks the marriage is supposed to give them. Hold that line. We're going straight to the woman who says the quiet part out loud.
Tell us what's happening with you.
Yeah, well, about back in May, I think I like to say the perimenopause came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, Kesha.
Well, that's what perimenopause is to do.
It'll tap you on the shoulder.
Yeah.
And it said, Kesha, marriage shouldn't feel this way.
Yeah.
So for 16 years, I had been bridging the emotional gap in our relationship. If a hard conversation needed to be had, I was the one facilitating it. If repair needed to be made, I was usually the one to start the repair, even if it wasn't my fault. And I came to him with that and talked about my grievances, because this even extended into, how we operated in our home. If something in our home needed a decision, it was me making that decision. So I came to him with that, and for the most part, he didn't disagree. But the main thing I got from him was, I don't know how to fix it. So I asked him if he'd be open to moving into separate rooms, because I needed time to center myself and figure out what this was going to look like. And he agreed with that. And my hope was in that time period that he would come to me, that he would, bridge the gap. I had spent 16 years bridging the gap. I wanted him to, I don't know why I thought this, but be my knight in shining armor and say, hey, I'm going to fight for this. I'm going to fight for you. Here's what I'm going to do. These are the things that I've started. And in the
Oh my goodness! 16 years of bridging the gap herself. And in the one moment, she finally steps back and waits. She's not waiting for a husband to meet her halfway. She's waiting for a rescue.
Yeah, I heard a little bit of rom-com love, right?
Yeah, rom-com.
Yeah.
This is pure gold.
I want this problem, and then he swoops in and he figures it out and he saves the day. And we see that over and over on TV.
Yeah.
But in real life, people don't figure things out without us telling them. Sometimes the separation that we encourage pushes us further apart. And what could be more helpful is being really clear with people.
Gentlemen, a licensed therapist just diagnosed her on air. And look at Kesha's face.
Yeah, I heard a little bit of rom-com love, right?
Yeah, rom-com.
Yeah.
Yes. Sounds ridiculous, does it? Now here's what neither Nedra nor The Room connects, and it's the part that actually matters. Kesha married a passive man, 16 years of a passive man, and in the one moment she needed him to step up unprompted, she wasn't asking him to be more of who he already was. She was asking him to become someone he had never once been in 16 years of marriage. That's not a communication failure. That's a rewrite request. The foolishness. And this isn't a coincidence, by the way. Listen to this.
And that can evolve in a 19-year marriage. You know, I've been married 16 years, and the things that I've needed over the years have shifted during different periods of time. And so, yeah, in relationships and friendships, like, we grow and change.
Yeah.
And so the things that made you feel loved and cared for maybe 10 years ago, like that security, that was really important at one point. But what you need now is this emotional part that's not being met.
This is what the Disney fairy tale and the rom-com don't tell you. Needs shift. That's real. But here's what the panel never says. Kesha said it herself and moved past it too fast.
I think I like to say the perimenopause came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, Kesha,
Well, that's what perimenopause is to do.
It'll tap you on the shoulder.
Perimenopause came and tapped me on the shoulder. She said it like a punchline. It's not. This is exactly the age bracket where perimenopause starts reshaping mood, energy, and tolerance for stagnation. This is exactly the age bracket where burnout risk spikes hardest for women running a household, a career, and a marriage simultaneously. The timing isn't random. The biology and the burnout are arriving at the same door at the same time, demanding the same man change on command. And the fairy tale never prepared her for this part. Disney doesn't have a sequel where the prince has to become a completely different person 18 years into the marriage. Neither does the rom-com. The credits roll at the altar. Nobody wrote the chapter where happily ever after requires a renegotiation nobody trained for.
And you wrote about this. I was so struck in the article when you wrote that your mother didn't speak to your father for a year and he didn't notice.
It's so shocking. And I was a kid and I remember sitting at the dinner table and my mom would nudge me past the salt. My mom uses a lot of salt. Her blood pressure is through the roof.
Yeah.
And I was like 10 years old and I would pass it to her. And I understood that something was going on, that they weren't getting along, but I didn't realize that they hadn't talked in so long.
And she would ask your father if he wants his shirts to go to the cleaners.
Yes.
And you would ask your father and then he
Yes.
would give you the shirts and never think anything of it.
You know, I was 10 years old, but I recently talked to her about it. And she said, after a year, my dad said, is something wrong? He hadn't even noticed.
And Monica says it plainly. My dad said, is something wrong? He hadn't even noticed. A man is living beside a woman who has gone completely silent, and the silence doesn't register. Not because he didn't care, because nobody ever taught him what to listen for. Now watch this. Because a completely different woman on a completely different stage just explained exactly why that happens.
For your partner to become your soulmate. The soulmate for all of history was God. You know, now you want your partner to be your soulmate with whom you're going to experience ecstasy and wholeness and meaning and transcendence and everything else from the daily life. And he's going to be the person with whom you have family and economic security and status and companionship and a trusted lover and a passionate confidant and an intellectual equal and a sports coach. We need that one in there and a cook. So that when you say, you know, the people that say to me, I have a wonderful relationship. I've never tried to have a conversation with my partner. I talk with my girlfriends when I want to talk. You know, or I have a person who doesn't want to travel. I travel. This notion that you have to, you know, the algorithm is trying to make you have kind of an algorithmic sameness. We love to travel. We like the same music. We like the same books. We like the same food. What does that have to do with life?
Esther Perel, talk some sense into these women, please. Sit with that for a second. A woman describing her marriage as wonderful while admitting she outsourced the actual talking to her friends years ago. That's not a contradiction to her. That's the arrangement working exactly as designed. Here's what nobody in either room asks. A year of silence doesn't start on day one. Something happened before that year, and we don't get that part of the story from Monica. We only get the year of punishment that followed it, and the moment her husband finally noticed.
First word comes to your head.
Sunny.
Sunny?
It's only one word. There's
All right,
others.
give me some other words.
This is pure gold. Watch what actually happens here. She asks him to open up. He does. Immediately. No hesitation. No deflection. He gives her exactly what she asked for. And she rejects it. Not because it was wrong, because it wasn't what she wanted to hear. That's the part the "he never talks to me" narrative always leaves out. Sometimes he doesn't talk because he's shut down. And sometimes he doesn't talk because the one time he tried, the answer got graded and sent back for revision. So before we go any further, hold that question. What happened before the silence started? Because Monica's about to tell us exactly where her mother's silence ended up.
The other thing that struck me in that article, you said that you could see the rage in your mother's narrowed eyes and her gazing at him sometimes from behind, and you could feel it in her chicken cacciatore.
Yes.
Yes. What did you mean by that?
I just knew she was angry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a kid, you can pick up on emotions.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I talked to her the other night and she said, I was hurt and then the hurt turned to hate.
Wow.
So I probably missed out on the hurt. Maybe I didn't recognize that, but I definitely saw the hate.
Yeah. Or certainly resentment.
Yes.
Certainly resentment.
That progression isn't unique to one household anymore. A recent UK poll, Merlin's Strategy for the New Statesman, found just 35% of women under 25 hold a positive view of men at all.
I think we're very used to hearing about young men's negative views of young women's and sort of misogyny amongst young men. But this really struck me because we found that 72% of young men have a favourable view of young women. 7%, so not very many really, have an unfavourable view of young women. When it comes to women under 30, though, only 50% have a favourable view. The unfavourable view of men goes up to 21%, and then under 25 women, it's just 35% of young women who have a favourable view of men. And if you go into very favourable, we actually use positive rather than favourable, but if you say very positive, it's just 11% of under 25 women. So we are looking at an environment where young women feel a lot more negatively towards young men than the other way around.
This isn't one bitter marriage. This is a generation absorbing the same progression Monica's mother went through. Hurt, unaddressed, curdling into something colder. Except now, it's happening before these women are even old enough to get married in the first place. And here's the double standard nobody names. When women say this about men publicly, in an article, on a podcast, in a poll, it's treated as valid testimony, legitimate grievance, worth a whole episode of Oprah. We've talked about this exact dynamic before.
I didn't look like law enforcement. I didn't look threatening or menacing or anything like that. So I was more successful.
A woman is rarely read as a threat, even when she's expressing outright contempt. Say the same thing about women, in the same tone, with the same conviction, and suddenly it's radicalization. Hate isn't the problem here. Whose hate gets a platform is. Here's the actual finding buried under an hour of validation. These women didn't leave the fairy tale. They renamed it. The prince became a partner. The rescue became showing up for me. The mind reading became connection. Same expectation, wearing a word that sounds more grown up. Wanting more isn't the problem. Wanting more from a man who was never told what more looks like, and blaming him when he can't read your mind, that's the problem. Because the culture that raised them spent decades building an exhaustive list of what they didn't want from men and never got around to writing the other half. She wanted the ending where the prince figures it out without being told. That's not partnership. Listen to all, follow none.
Man, that's where we working.
Protect yourself at all times. This video has officially been highlighted.